Welcome to another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. Let's start painting. Today we're painting this page, which is the 8th page. The 8th page of the Chattanooga Scenery Watercolor Coloring book. This is the reference that we will be using. It is another quite detailed piece, so it'll probably take us a little over an hour to make this one. As always, have a place to mix your colors, usually just a porcelain dish. This is just a soap dish, you can get them anywhere. Any paint works. This is just my palette. It's paint that I make, but I may be partnering with a company that makes their own paint, since it's really difficult for me to be always making the paint. And then scrap piece of paper, just so you can kind of do some test strokes and test out the colors. Always a rag or a paper towel, something that you can use to dry off your brush along with your painting. And on the side here, just 2 jars of water is what I use. You can use 1, but 2 is better, just in the long run. And I have one of these little spray bottles that I use to wet my brush, or my paints, not my brush. It just makes it quicker and easier to get the paint moist before we start painting. So with this one, this is Cooper's Alley down in downtown Chattanooga. It's kind of a hidden spot, and it often gets switched around, so it doesn't always look like this. In fact, almost every time that I go there, it's kind of a little different, which is kind of cool. Because they have a lot of events and different stores. And anyway, with this, the very first thing that we will be working on, I'm just gonna roll up my sleeves a little bit. We will be mixing up basically the pavement here on the floor of this little alleyway, and it's kind of like a peachy yellowish color. Orange. So we're just gonna grab some orange and some red, a little more orange, and then a good amount of water, because we don't want it to be too saturated, because it'll come out darker when it's saturated. And then a good amount of red, or yellow. A good amount of yellow. Let's see. I'm gonna grab some more yellow. There's a bit of green from the last painting I did. Let's see. That's very close, but we probably wanted a little more orange. Just a little more orange. A little more. That looks pretty good, and obviously it will be drying lighter. So we're just gonna grab a bunch more water. Let's see. And we're just gonna go ahead and do a flat wash, which is basically we're filling in the area almost as if we're using a marker. Just kind of with these chairs over here, don't worry about them. You can totally just paint right over them as you're going in, because the details are very dark on the chairs, so we don't have to worry about trying to get in all those little spaces. So just go ahead and lay that in. Coincidentally, this is also a very good skin tone, or a base for a skin tone. If you're painting people, just mixing red, orange, and yellow, and just kind of playing around with that combination will normally yield some good results for skin tones that you can use in your paintings. Okay, and again, these chairs, I'm not worried about them. I'm just going right through them. When we paint in those chairs, they are a much darker color, so it won't interfere at all with the look. But this way, we're not really fiddling around trying to get all the little details and taking up extra time. I like to be mindful of time whenever I'm working on very complex pieces like this. Or at least try to be. Sometimes I get lost and forget about it. Okay, so that's the ground. We laid that in pretty quickly, so that's good. So we're gonna grab some green next. So this sculpture that runs all throughout Cooper's Alley is basically kind of a lime green metal, almost like a vent looking thing that's kind of like wrapping all the way around. So for that, we will need a lot of yellow. I put down a little bit of green, and now we're getting a lot of yellow. I also messed around with my camera settings a bit to try to get more true tones as I'm painting them, just because I noticed that the last page that I painted, the teal color wasn't really coming out quite right, and that bothered me. Although it was still a good painting, it's just that I want the camera to convey the correct colors of the paint that I'm mixing. I get a little more yellow. So it's picking up the color a little better now. I probably also just need to mess around with my lighting, but so far I think this is looking good. When I look at my screen and then look at the painting itself, it seems pretty accurate. And so this is the exact color that we will be using. It's just that we want it to be more transparent because it's fairly light. So I'm just adding more water now to this mixture down here. Let's see. So that's good. So I'm just gonna go ahead and lay it in just the exact same thing that we did for the ground. It's just a flat wash. Pretend that it's a marker and you're just laying it all in like that. And just following along slowly, not, you don't have to obsess about the detail, but because there's going to be a lot of things that we paint around this, we do want to try to take our time for this particular detail because it's such a central part of the whole piece. If we have it laid down properly, it really helps tie everything together. Okay, doing all that. And then this. And back here. And take your time, there's a lot of detail here. Over here. Down here, there's chairs, but we're not worried about that. And this sculpture kind of snakes around in the back, goes up here, over the top here, down here, all the way in the back. Okay, I'm gonna dry off my brush and then just pick up some of this excess over here, maybe spread it around a bit, try to make it a little more uniform. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm just gonna take off my jacket that I was wearing because it's getting a little warm. Okay, so that was good. The next large portion that we will mix is this building right here. And that one is kind of like a very faded yellow. Yeah, very faded yellow green. So I'm just gonna grab this yellow right here because it already has some green in it, honestly. And then actually, I'll go back and I'll grab some of the color from this mixture and put it in here. Okay, so that's good. Add water, a little bit of brown. Let's see. I'm gonna get a little more green. It has kind of like a slight green shade to it. And a little more brown. Yeah, that's just about right there. So with this one, what I'm gonna do is when I block it in, I'm just gonna fill in this whole area. The only thing that I'm really gonna avoid is these little lights, because the rest of it we can just fill in with the colors that we'll use. And because the windows themselves and the bars that are covering them are just so much darker, so this is a very light color. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and start filling in. And I'll also try to avoid the umbrellas that are here, because the umbrellas themselves will need a little bit of contrast in color to convey the shadows and the highlights. So that I will try to be careful of. But the rest of it, we're just filling it in. Don't worry about overlapping objects. Just going in. Okay. I'm gonna grab some more and just lay it in very boldly, just going all in. Covering those areas. See, I covered some of that light over there. That's all right. Okay, all the way back here. That's a very big portion. We're getting that covered very quickly. Part of the reason is, as the paint dries, the color itself changes when you add another layer to try to meet like two different sections of the flat wash that we're using to fill in. Okay, so just filling it all in like that, using whatever little bit we have left over here for this top section, just covering it all in. And it's okay if it's a little lighter also, because it goes up. And that's that. This section up here is actually gray, I think. Yeah, so that's fine. You can just leave that. Okay, so that looks good. I'm gonna rinse my brush. Oh, actually, you know, sorry, it's just a little bit back here. I'm gonna cover that in like that. There we go. Okay. Okay, that looks good. Rinse my brush. Now in the back here, there's a lot of gray, and it's more of like a cool gray, like a lot of blue in the gray. For that, we'll go ahead and we'll grab some of the brown and some of the light blue and just mix it up. We'll grab some water. Grab more water. This building in particular with all the windows, we want that one to be a lighter gray than the one that's next to it. I'm going to add a little more water, but that's pretty close to the color that we're going for. So I'm just going to start filling it in. I'm not going to worry about these 3 long lines that are running on the sides and the middle of this building. I could just cover them because they will be a darker color whenever we try to fill in that detail. But the windows, this is the tricky part here. The windows, we do want to kind of be careful of. Oh, and also this little section, this is all gray as well, the same gray color. We will be adding shades and detail to that, but in the meantime, we could just go ahead and fill that in right here. And it's okay if the colors back here bleed in a little bit and get mixed up. That's okay because, again, we'll be adding a lot more detail, and it's fine. So here I'm just gonna lay in that color and go kind of slowly. Don't try to rush this part just because, like, I already messed up a little bit. Like, some sections got a little bit in the windows. We want all of these to be white because, well, it makes it look much more like a building. So when you're painting a building like this, you have 2 choices. You can either make the windows dark enough to contrast with the building color, or you could just leave them white. In reality, they're not going to be white. Like, if you go to this alley and actually look up at that building, they're not white. Excuse me. But from a stylistic point of view, from just trying to get the painting done, you do want to have some white showing through in a watercolor painting, and this is an excellent opportunity to do that just by leaving these windows white. And also, if it's a sunny day like the one that we're painting, it brightens it up. It makes it look brighter. If you just put them all as very dark, that won't come through as clearly. Okay, so I'm just continuing to lay that in, just ever so slowly and very carefully. Okay. And up here, we're almost done. Just keep at it. Sometimes I like to just zone out whenever I'm doing details like this, and then just listen to some kind of like lo-fi relaxing beats, like the one that I try to have playing in the background of these videos. It's almost like meditation. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna rinse my brush. And now I will focus on the, well actually, I'm gonna grab more water, and then with a lighter variation of the same color, I'll go ahead and I will fill in this right here, this building, or this portion of the building that's sitting right on top of this faded yellow-green building. I'm just gonna go ahead and lay it in like that. I'm just gonna dry my brush a little bit, pull off some of that color. But that's that with that one. And then next, we will mix the color for this building over here, the one that makes up this wall. And all that is some brown. That's probably a lot of brown, probably too much, but that's okay. Some red, I'm gonna kind of mix them in. Let's see. Get a little more brown in there. It's pretty close to the color we want. I'm just going to add more water to make it easier to work with. And so that I also have more paint to work with. Okay. Yep, that's exactly what we want. And there's going to be windows and some pipes here. Again, those are going to be very dark, so we're just going to fill this in as the base color. Okay. Okay. Oh, also down here, this little square. Because this color is darker, and I do need to add some of it over here for the stairs. Excuse me. I'm not going to just paint right over the table like I did before. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of do a little bit in between, and then just kind of going like that. Okay. I'm going to rinse that out. And then while this section's drying, we can focus on these umbrellas over here. They are this dark blue. Whatever dark blue you have, just grab that and lighten it up with some water. Just gonna do a test. Okay, that's good. And then just go ahead and fill that in. Okay, I'm gonna dry my brush. I'm gonna pick up some of that excess. Same for right here. That's it. So that's good. Don't worry about it any longer for a little bit. Next, we can go ahead and paint this spot and this spot. So these two right here. And that color is very similar to this building color right here, but it's much lighter. So we're just going to grab water and just pick up some of that. Maybe add a little bit of red. There we go. Okay. I'm just gonna lay that in. As well as right here. Okay, rinse my brush. So everything's looking good so far. slowly coming along. So the next thing that we want to focus on is, well, actually before we do the tables, there's two little half circles on the floor that are kind of just as decoration, and those are that teal color. So go back to right here, and I'm gonna grab some of my light blue and some of the green, and let's see. Actually, I think that looks pretty close to what we need. Yep, I'll just go ahead and again, not really caring about the tables and the chairs. We're just gonna go in, just lay that in, just like that. And just careful here at the edge. And that's finished. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do this over here. Okay, I'm gonna clean my brush. So both of those look good. Let's see. So now we can go ahead and finish this this building right here. That's a much darker gray. So we can just hop on over to this side again, and we'll grab some brown, grab some dark blue, just mix them together. This color is also pretty much going to be the same color that we use for the chairs. So you can kind of play around a little bit. You want it to be a dark gray on the side of blue. You want to have like a shade of blue in there. Not too much though, you don't want to overdo it. Let's see. Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. So go ahead and lay that in. Carefully. Probably put a little too much water there. And then also going down like this. See, I got a little bit on that pipe. So quickly I'm gonna dry off my brush and then just pick up some of that color. There we go. That's the best way. If you get a color onto a spot that you don't want it to be in, the best way to do it is just dry off your brush and pick it up quickly. The quicker you do it, the less of a trace that there will be on that spot. Okay, so I know that all of this still looks pretty pale, because we haven't really put any of those deep contrasting colors yet. But you'll see how once we start doing that, it'll come together pretty quick. So now we need to do the color for the tables and the chairs, and I'm just gonna grab more brown. This whole mess of gray, dark gray here, I'm just gonna kind of work on that just to make it a little darker so that we can make sure that it covers. Okay. So now we can just go ahead and start laying that in where the tables are. So the tables, chairs, and it does not have to be perfect because there is a lot of detail here, so there is some confusion will inevitably happen with all this detail in here. What I'm basically trying to do is just kind of block in the general shapes so that when the viewer looks at it, they can kind of at a glance get an idea of what's going on. And we will also be doing several layers of this, so it doesn't because when it dries you'll be able to see some of the color from underneath, and we may want to block out some of that depending on how far back the chairs are, how much is coming through. But in the meantime, what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of blocking in those colors with that dark gray. Okay, so that's good. That looks good. It's almost semi-impressionist in the way that you're more so giving an idea of an object as opposed to the direct detail of that object, because these kind of look like messes of dark gray. If you look at them at a glance though, you can really tell what's going on. You get the idea immediately. Okay. And all of that. Okay, there we go. And rinse my brush. And so the next thing that I'll work on is actually we can use this color. We can use the same color to create a bit of shading up here. So this is kind of like it's like a parking garage where it has those columns, and so the light is coming straight down, so there's a lot of dark up here. And the first thing we can do is just grab this. Let's see. It's too dark. That's too dark. I'm just gonna get some more mixing area, and then we want to mix a gray color again, but this time it's gonna lean more towards brown. So we're just gonna grab the brown and the dark blue again, mix it together, and add a good amount of water because we're just gonna do a wash to establish the shaded area first. And that's probably too light. I'm gonna get a little more pigment. Let's see. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, that's perfect. So what I'm doing here is I'm filling in this whole underlayer where basically it's the ceiling of that layer, of that level of the parking. So look, I'm just gonna block it in like this, just like we did before. And what that's going to do is let the viewer know, okay, so this part is in shade. We will add another layer to the shading, but currently it's just to let the viewer know that there's some dimension there, and to establish the difference in the light that surface has on it. So we're doing like that. And that. Okay. Okay, perfect. And then, and this there's a lot of water in this mixture, so it will dry lighter. I mean, I know I keep saying that for all the colors, but when you lay down a color that has more water, it will look much darker and then dry much lighter, as opposed to if you lay down one that has more pigment, less water, it'll still dry lighter, but not to the same degree. So next I'm gonna grab the same shade color and I'm just gonna show that there's a little bit of a sill over here that's casting a shadow. You can see how doing that, it immediately gives that building more dimension. It gives the viewers a sense of depth. And I'm just gonna put, there's like a little slot over here in the back. I'm just gonna add a little bit of, the further back that you go, the less of a concern the details are. You're mostly just kind of placing color there to show, you know, when things go further back, they tend to be darker, just because you can't see the light bounce off of them as clearly. And then the next thing is these windowsills, they also cast a shadow that I'm going to do the same thing for. I'm just gonna grab this, go down here, just slowly, not too big, just a little bit of a shadow just to show, like that. And okay, that looks good. I'm gonna rinse off my brush. So while that's drying, I can go ahead and bring this up again. So this is the color that we used for the chairs. The base color for the chairs, I should say. And with this, I'm just going to put a little bit up here, which is basically the underneath of those balconies. I'm just gonna do that, just to show that those are also in the in shade. A little bit there, a little bit there. And then I can also use the exact same color. Well, actually no, I need a slightly darker color. So I'm just gonna, let me see if I need to use this anywhere else before I for these 3 rows over here on the three lines, the sides in the middle for this building. Before I do that, I'm just gonna grab a little bit of water, kind of mix this up over here, and then just do a lighter, that's a lighter green or a gray for this right here. And actually that's a bit too dark, so I'm gonna rinse off my brush, dry it off, and then just pick up a bunch of that color, because this is a light gray hand railing. Okay, rinse off my brush. And now, I'm gonna grab a little bit of brown, mix it up over here. And a little bit of that dark blue, try to make it a little darker, but also a little bit more on the brown side. That's probably good. Yeah, that's good. And so this one, I'm just gonna go very slowly, just this line over here on the side of the building. Okay, so that's pretty much exactly how I want that to look. I'm just gonna go ahead and do the same with the one in the middle. Very slowly. Slowly and carefully. If you want to darken it up, you can also just dab that line just a little bit, because it'll make the brush give up a little more of that color and pigment that's being held by the brush. So it can strengthen the saturation of the color. Like that. Same right here. Okay. Rinse my brush. I'm just going to check my reference. So that looks fine, but I do notice that the little teal half circles here are much darker. If we look at the... So that would make it more difficult for making the shadows. So what we can do is, my brush is just, it's wet. I'm just gonna actually get some of that water off. So now it's just a moist brush. And what I can do now is, I'm just gonna go ahead and go over this area and wet that color. Rub it in gently. And basically, I'm just gonna go back in, dry off my brush. I'm gonna go back in with my dry brush to pick up that color. So now you still see that it's the same color, just lightened up. I'm gonna do that. At the same time, creating that illusion of a shadow right there. Oh wow, I had my... Sorry. Here, I'll show you over here, back here, how I did that. See, okay. All I did was I wet my brush, and then I kind of grazed it against the edge of the jar a little bit to get most of the water off. And then what I did was I just went over that area a couple of times, dried my brush, and then picked up that color. You see how immediately that lightens it up? And dry it a couple of times if you need to, so you can pick up all the excess. And see how that color immediately lightened up? So that makes it closer to what that original looked like. And if you want to lighten it up more, you can do the same. You can do the same, honestly, many times over. It's just at a certain point, it'll just take off too much, you know? And then it will look a little weird. But that's basically that technique. So the next thing that we can do is we can go back to the original ground color. I do realize that this one looks a little more yellow than orange, but that's fine. Since we still have that color right here, we have several options for how to create the shadow that this, the pipe, the artwork pipe is casting. So we can go ahead and just put down the exact same color right over it, and just layering that color on top blocks more of the white of the paper, making it just darker. But we also want to alter the color of the shadow a little bit. So it's basically, we're using the same color as the ground, but we want to push it a little bit more towards the cool colors on the color wheel. And we're going to do that by adding maybe a little bit too much purple, but basically just a little bit of purple and mixing it all in. Okay, so this is a good shadow color for that specific color. Okay, so the way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to go from like this. The way that this is casting the shadow down is going to be just a straight shot like this. And then increase the width of it to make it just a little thicker, like that. And that's it for that. I'm going to use this a little bit to create a bit of a shadow here, because this does stand up off the ground, so we do want that. And then I'm going to grab this. So this one right here is kind of going back like this. There's that, and then back here, some of the shadow for these ones, and then back here like this. And then back here, we can also just kind of darken that whole back, because it's really far back, so it's not getting as much light exposure. So yep, that looks good. And then we're going to use this same color to add the shadow for these chairs and tables right here. I'm just going to go ahead and put that in like that, like that. And also a shadow for this pot, because it's being exposed to the sun. And then down here, for without going into this little circle, just on top of where the ground is for these tables, and also here like that. Okay, I'm gonna rinse off my brush again. So for the shadow that is being cast on the sculpture, on this pipe over here, it's normally, if the light is coming like this, you would think that it would be cast on the bottom, but it's actually, because the light is coming more of an angle like this, where it's like more, it's up and in front of us as opposed to directly on top of us. And there's also reflection, because the floor and the buildings themselves, there's enough light where it bounces off and goes back up in here. So the shadow we want to actually put on the side of the sculpture, not on the bottom, but on the side. And we're going to do that across, like it's going to go here and here. So you can see it in this one. So we do it here and here. And now with these ones in the back, if you look at the reference, I left them lighter. The reason being is because we are going to be adding a lot of shadow back here to create that sense of depth. And these are going to get lost in the process. So if we just leave them lighter, even though that's not how it will look in real life, we can leave these lighter just so that they read more clearly in the painting. That's the kind of decisions that artists that like to paint plein air or just from observation make all of the time. It doesn't have to necessarily be exactly as it looks in real life, as long as it works with the composition. Okay, and so we're mixing the shadow for the sculpture color. So I'm just going to grab some water to reactivate this color. I'm going to grab a little more of the green, and then just a touch of brown. A little more brown, a little more green. Let's see. Yep, that's a perfect shadow color. It's nice and strong, but not too strong, and close enough to the original color to show that it belongs there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and same thing, like I'm as if I'm using a marker. Just try to block that in. Okay. Okay. Just take your time. There were some mess ups up here from when I was painting the background, but now we're just covering them because we're doing a darker color. That's pretty easy there. And then we can do a little bit over here, but because it's at an angle, this one does get a bit of the light exposure, so that's fine, like this. And then going over here, covering in all of that, just slowly but carefully. Whenever I do large distances like that, I often paint with my shoulder as opposed to my wrist, meaning that I keep my wrist stiff and I just use my shoulder to help me get those long lengths. Some artists say that you should only paint from your shoulder. I don't really subscribe to that. It's depending on the space that you're working in. And then this back here, we're also just going to touch that up a little bit like that. Okay, that's good. Rinse my brush. And then I'm gonna go back to this. So this is basically the building color that we used for this side. I'm just gonna grab that and use that as my shadow color for the pots. So I'm just gonna go like this and create a little bit of an outline there, a little bit of a line right here for the edge of the pot, and down here like that, and like that, and I think that should be good. And while we are on this color, we can now mix up the darker portions that are going to go into this building. We still want this color, just much darker variation of it. So I'm just going to grab some purple and just blend that in. More water, make it easier to work with. Brown. Okay, and then dark blue. Let's see, so this is a very, very dark color, which will be perfect. Basically, where you see those little squares that make up the windows, we can just use those as the guideline for where the color will go. So like, for example, there's one right here, and just like that. And there's another one right here. There's another one right here, but there's also this railing. I'm just gonna go and make a thin line going all the way down. There's another one right here, a corner of it, a little bit. One of my the hairs on the brush is coming out. In the corner here, another one here, another one here, another one here, here. We have some more. There's another pipe coming down, a little bit here, here, and here. It doesn't have to be perfect. Rinse off my brush. And then I'm just going to grab a new mixing space. I'm going to use this for the windows. And they're going to be fairly dark. So I'm just going to use this color that I have here that we mixed previously. Going to put in dark blue, some purple, dark blue, a little bit of green, just a little bit. Test it out. Okay, that's good. So this is a fairly dark color, but there's also a lot of water in it. So I could just layer it again. First, I just want to lay it down just to get the feel for the color. And I'm not going to worry about the metal grating that's protecting the window, because that's going to be much darker. So we can just go ahead and lay that in to try to get those windows blocked out. A little bit over here, down here as well. Grab some more. And then this one. I am trying to avoid that windowsill. That windowsill is the same color as the building. And then down here. Over here. And back here. Okay, rinse my brush. I always enjoy seeing how adding just some shading to a painting brings out so much of the dimensionality of it. It just makes it look more like it's not just flat, it actually gives it some depth. And we're also gonna color in the little greenery that we have in these two pots, as well as the one back here. And the way we'll do that is we'll grab some of that green, some yellow, mix it up. More on the green side. And I'm just gonna go ahead and lay that in. Just directly. Didn't even put a lot of water on it or nothing. Just kind of mixed it up and then going right in these three spots. And that's my brush. Okay, it all looks pretty good so far. And the next thing that we can focus on is grabbing some of the dark blue for the umbrellas and adding a little bit of outline and detail. Basically just grab that color. Let's see here. Okay, that's good. So I'm just gonna do a little line going like this, just because they have those little spokes that hold the umbrellas, and then just a little bit of a outline there, like that, showing that it caves in a little from the slack between the spokes. A little bit like that. And same over here, and just go slowly. Just go slowly. And this right here. And that's it. Those are pretty much done. I rinse my brush. I just noticed that I forgot to put shadows on the under the windowsills of the reference painting. See, like how we have those right here? Yeah. Okay. And now we can go ahead and mix up, let's see, where do we put the color? So the color that I used for up here, I think it was this color. I can actually use the same color again. I'm just gonna put a little more brown in it and some water. Make it easier to work with. Ah, see, that's too much brown. And get some blue. Okay. So this color, we can use it to emphasize the darker parts of that, because even though this whole ceiling is in shadow, as it recedes it gets darker. And I'm actually gonna get more blue, because that'll help make it look darker too. And so here what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, well, first I'll do it back here. What I'm doing is I'm adding that, and I'm adding this just to right about there. Now what that does is, when I rinse my brush and then dry it off, when I just brush the edge of it, it'll make the edge softer, therefore creating some of that gradient, like some of that receding. Line. Okay. We'll grab some more, and then go ahead and put that in here. And do the same, just a little less as the further it goes back, just a little less, but you still want to show that transition. Rinse my brush, dry it off, and then just go where that edge is. And then just kind of like that, pick it up. It doesn't have to be perfect, just want to soften up the edge, just to show that there is a transition there. Okay, and then grab some of that and put it there. Okay, there and there. Dry off the brush. And there. Okay. I'm going to step back just a moment. You see, the more we build up those values in the shades, it really starts bringing up the lighter areas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same color, or what's left of it, and just go ahead and do another outline, but this time it's going to be a much thinner outline, just basically where the edge is. I'm not going to be going as far out. Just trying to get that edge. There we go. Okay, so that looks good. And the next thing is we want to, the bars that are on the windows, we want to color those in. We don't want them to be too much darker from this color. They're present and we want them to be visible, but if they're too much darker, it'll actually start making it look a bit like a jail. So what we want to do is we want to grab, and they are black, so we're going to grab just a little bit of the black color, a little bit, and then add some of the dark blue and just kind of mix it in. And let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's good. We're just going to use that to outline those bars like that. I think this is a restaurant over here. Just going to go in like that. And there's a good amount of water in this, so it will dry lighter. Do the same right here. Just kind of go in slowly, get those details, and if you go out of the lines a little bit, obviously that's fine. It's not a big deal. You grab a little more, fill in this one right here, and right here, here and here, like that, all the way back here. Just a little bit of a suggestion. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on blocking in the darker areas back here, and that'll really create that sense of depth. I'm going to grab some dark blue, good amount of pigment on the dark blue there, and then good amount of brown, and just really mix it together. Get some water. I'm using less water because now I want it to just really kind of stand out a lot more. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so that's good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to block this in like this. Like this. Going up a little bit. That. In between the sculpture lines. Going up, I'm just going to do a line here, just outline some of those forms. And going up like this. And just doing less the further up I go, but more the further down it is. So it's just kind of giving that idea that, okay, there's a dark area there, it's further back, and that was good. I'm just going to look at my reference. So all of that looks really good, and it will pop a lot more once we add the black outlines just to specific areas. We're not there yet though. I know we're at an hour so far, so I thank you for bearing with me. Remember, you can always pause this and just come back to it. You can leave it exactly as it is and then come back to it and pick it up later on. It's totally fine. So I'm going to grab this light blue. And for the light blue, that's our sky color. I'm gonna use this. I'm just gonna just fill that in right here. And then just kind of pull that up here. Do a little bit of leave some space here for like a cloud. Maybe another cloud right here. Cover that in. There we go. So that's good. Rinse my brush. And before we start the black outlines, there's one more thing that we need to do that's fairly simple. We could just grab brown directly from the little pan, and we're going to use that. Let me see, make sure. Okay, I'm just gonna do the line here for the pole that is holding the umbrellas. So that's that, and that, and that's good on that. I rinse my brush. And then gonna switch back to this right here. So looking at the reference, the contrast is much higher up here. So I'm just gonna grab some more and then just add kind of like just a little bit down here, a little bit here, a little bit, and it's almost like I'm just trying to outline the edge a little bit. I think that's fine right there. Rinse my brush, and then grab some of that pure black. And remember, the more directly up and down you hold it, and if you just graze the surface of the paper just slightly, you can make some really nice thin lines. I'm just gonna hold it a bit more of an angle just because I don't want to block the camera. So basically I'm outlining parts, not everything, just parts of the tables. Just trying to show like the little bars that are across the stools, the bottom of the table, just kind of going in and giving it giving it a little more definition in the areas that are kind of hard to make out. Like that, maybe for the chair, or for the leg of the table, like that. Same thing for the chair, just a little bit here and there. And got a little more black. Like that. Okay, then also the windows, the bars, I'm just gonna go, excuse me, just a small line here just to show, like that. Also underneath the umbrellas, just a small line to help distinguish. There we go. I'll grab some more. You can already see how much better it looks with the outlines. And then up here, I'm just going to kind of do an outline just a little bit on the bars. Like that. Like that. And there. It does not have to be perfect. Don't worry about making it perfect. And just a very small suggestion back here. And rinse my brush. And the last thing that I will do is use this mixture right here just to bump up the darkness that we have back here, just to really help make that pop. Like that. And I'm just going to step back a moment. Okay, I think that looks good. We're done with this one. We don't want to overwork it. You can go in if you want to And like if you have like a pen or something and you just want to add more outline, you can. But I think it looks good like this. It does look a little different in terms of contrast from our reference. But, excuse me, I actually think it looks better because the reference, like, you can really see where the light is just hitting that building. It just pops. And the reference is a little more muddled. So it's almost like the sunlight is brighter on the day that we're painting for this one in particular. They're both good. I just like this one better. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you for bearing with me. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. So if you managed to do the whole thing in one go, congrats. That's actually that's not easy to do, especially if you're not used to painting. I just paint all the time, so I'm used to sitting hours on end, like doing commissions or just painting for books or but if you have questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments, or just shoot me a message on Instagram, or email me, whatever works. But with that, I thank you for your time, and I will see you for the next tutorial, the next page, which should also be later on today. Thank you.